So for the next question, let's speak about the average stock turnover rate. So the average stock turnover rate basically shows us how many times a business sells and replaces its inventory or stock during a certain period, usually a year, right? So how many times do they sell and replace their inventory? Why does it matter? It matters because a high turnover rate means that you are selling your stock quickly, which is good for cash flow. Because if you're selling your stock quickly and you're replacing it, you're buying more, you're selling, it means that you're making more money, and your cash flow is basically good because you can convert your stock quickly. But if you have a lower turnover, meaning that your goods are sitting too long in your business, which might be bad for business. And how bad? Because what can happen is, since your stock is sitting for too long, it can get damaged, or it can be stolen, right? People can steal it because it's sitting for long in the business. And lastly, what it can do is can go out of fashion, right? Especially if you're in like the fashion industry, the fast fashion industry, whereby things change, right? You might be holding stock for too long, and then the trend changes. Now you can no longer sell the stock because people don't want it, they want the new stuff. So a lower turnover rate is really bad. So whenever you're analyzing your ratios and you see that your turnover rate increased, it means that's a good thing because you're converting your stock quickly and your cash flow is good. But if it's low or it drops, it means that you're starting to convert your stock slow, and that can cause these issues, right? And what's the formula for the stock turnover rate? So I'm just going to write it here. So stock turnover rate, the way I used to remember it back in school is, I'd say it's CA, right? CA. And by CA, I used to basically say is the cost of sales over the average inventory, right? The average inventory. So I used to say stock turnover rate is equal to C over A, which is cost of sales over average inventory. And cost of sale is basically the cost of the stock that we sold during the year, right? And then you have your average inventory, which is half. So if I were to explain it further, this one, I don't need to explain it. The cost of sale is basically how much it cost you to make or buy the goods that you sold, right? So that's basically cost of sales, right? How much it cost you or to make or buy the inventory that you sold. So that's cost of sale. I feel like most people are comfortable with that. And with average inventory is basically half of opening stock plus closing stock. So I'm saying half here, but it's basically opening stock plus closing stock divided by 2, right? So you're saying opening stock plus closing stock divided by 2. That gives you the average inventory or your average inventory. So I'm going to do a short question, so which is question 2.4. Sorry for that. So in question 2.4, so they say calculate the average stock turnover rate for the Clio phone for 2024. I thought let me interrupt the video for a few seconds and share two quick points. First one is, I've realized that most people who watch this channel are not yet subscribed. So if that's you, make sure that you click that subscribe button, you turn on the notification bell. Secondly, I have a free WhatsApp community called the Top Achiever Circle. So if you're interested in moving from being an average student to being a top performing student, make sure that you go to the link in the description and join my free WhatsApp community called the Top Achiever Circle. Hope to see you there. Cheers. Right, so we go to the information that relates to the Clio phone. So with the Clio phone, we know that the first thing that we need to have the cost of sale, and we also need to have opening stock and closing stock, right? The opening stock value and the closing stock value. So let's go and see if we can get those amounts. I'm just going to answer it here in the answer book and say so the average stock turnover rate is equal to cost of sale over your average inventory, opening stock plus closing stock value, right? So what's your cost of sale? And we dealing with Leo. So the cost of sale, you can calculate it by basically saying, here they gave you how many units they sold during the year, right? They gave you how many units they sold, but another way you can calculate it, which is like the easier one that I'm seeing now, is with the Clio, they gave you the total sales and the gross profit. And you know that when you say sales less cost of sales, you get your gross profit. You get your gross profit. So I'm just gonna do this. So if we take our sales and then we subtract your gross profit, we'll get the cost of sale. That's one way we can do it. We can basically say our cost of sale is equal to your sales less the gross profit. And they gave you the sales for 16,000. So I'm just gonna say 24 for 16,000 less the gross profit, which is 6,976 is equal to. And when you do that, it's supposed to give you, or it's going to give you 17,440,123. So that's one way you could have calculated cost of sale. Or another way, remember I said cost of sale is basically how much it cost you to buy or make the goods that you sold. So another way, alternative method, right, is cost of sale is equal to, you need to figure out how many units did you sell during the year. And they gave you here that the units sold during the year was 2180 in 2024. 2180. So we're gonna say 2180 times how much did it cost you to acquire or make this good. So the cost price was 8,000 per unit, right? And we can see that it didn't change from 2023 to 2024. So we can just say 8,000 is how much it costed us to buy these goods. And when you multiply those two, it has to give you the same amount, which is 17,440,000. So I'm just gonna put it here and say 17,440,123. And now we want the average inventory. So we need to get our opening stock value and our closing stock value. So the nice thing here is with the Clio, we've already calculated how much our units are gonna be on hand at the end of the year, right? And last year they gave us the value of closing stock. Wait, I know we also calculated the value of closing stock this year. So if you see, this is the value of the opening stock, because they're saying in 2023 the value of the closing stock was 2160, which is basically the opening stock for 2024, right? So we can say 216123, that's the value of the opening stock. And then we want the value of the closing stock. We already calculated it here. The value of the closing stock. Right, we already calculated it here, but this is the total value of the closing stock, including both Bruma and Clio. But we're only interested in Clio. So we're going to take the value of the closing stock for Clio, which is 2.84 million, right? So we're going to go down and say plus 2.84 million, right? So that's the value of your closing stock for Clio. Remember, we're focusing on Clio alone here, and this is the value of the closing stock. And if you punch that into a calculator, basically saying 17,440,000 over the average inventory, you should get let me actually punch it. 17,440,123 over 0.5, which is half, 160, 123, 52840, and 2A. You get 6.976, which is approximately 7 times, meaning that this company sells and replaces the Clio phones 7 times a year, right? So that's how quickly they sell their stock. And if we're saying it's 7 times here, because down here you can see that we got the stock turnover rate is 7 times. You can see it improved from last year. Last year it was 4.4. This year is 7, meaning that now they're selling their stock quicker. But we're going to get to that one. Hope you enjoyed this video and you found it valuable. See you on the next one.